Rendering, preparing the scene. So we've done quite a bit of work up until now, and now we deserve to render. We want to render. So there's a few things though that we need to clean up just before we actually start rendering. We could right now just press the render button and go, but we do know that this window was a little bit too low, so we need to adjust that. And there are a few other little things we want to clean up before we finally press the render button. So right away, let's just click on this window and let's adjust that sill height. Right now it's at 3 feet. Let's put it up at 3'7" and let's apply that. Okay, now I'll be honest, I did previous to this do a quick section through there and make sure that it would fit just by changing the sill height. But that's something that you can do, is just click on the window in perspective mode and change it. Now, of course, you will want to check that in other views to make sure it doesn't crash into the roof or soffit or other things. But we have checked that and it works out okay. The other thing I wanted to look at as far as preparing the scene is the model itself has holes in it. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's click on the default 3D view. This whole section here is just open to the sky. So if we were to render, you get a lot of natural light just flooding in here for kind of no reason really when it comes down to it. So what we're going to do is just draw a wall across, and then we're going to draw a ceiling on top right there. Now, we've already done some videos on that, so that's something you could review if you need to. I'm going to do it somewhat quickly. Let's go to the top of floor 1. So let's just start with this wall that we're going to put across here. I'm just going to right click on that exterior wall 1 and then create similar. We're drawing from the finished face interior. I'm going to start here and draw clockwise to there. Now, one thing I didn't check on this, let me just hit escape twice, was the height. Now, I think we lucked out. If we click on that wall, its height is actually up to top of roof plate. So we're fine there, but don't forget to check the height. Now, the other thing we're going to do is draw a little ceiling, and that'll close in the space, and that way the lighting will be a little bit more just topical, just in the kitchen. Okay, so under ceiling plans, let's go to top of floor 1, and we're going to draw a ceiling right over in this side right here. Now we already have a ceiling done, and we like the style, so let's right click on it. Now let's just hit escape. I want to make sure we're right clicking on the ceiling. And sometimes you even have to use the tab key to get into it. There's the ceiling there. I'm going to right click and say create similar. And now I'm going to go into sketch ceiling. The rectangle tool will be the best tool to use just to quickly fill that in right there. Good. Now the height is 8 feet off of top of floor 1. That should be fine. And we will accept that. Okay, let's hit escape. And let's go back to our default 3D view. And yeah, it looks like we have closed that off. It's always good to look in your interior rendering as well. Just make sure there's no funny stuff happening over here. So another thing that I want to do is talk a little bit about lighting very briefly. And rendering is something that we could spend a lot of time on. And in other videos, we can talk about that more in depth. But for now, what we're going to do is just put in something called studio lights. And what studio lights are they're sort of a light that you can put in when you don't know what you're going to use. It's just a light. So I'm going to go to my top of floor 1, and let's load in that light. So I'm going to go to Home, Component, and let's load a family. We'll go to our Imperial Library, then we're going to go to Lighting Fixtures, and we're going to look for something called a studio light. Here it is. Okay, so we just load that in. Now it says there's no tag. Do you want to load one now? No thanks. We'll just drop the light in. Now you'll notice here that it's putting it in at top of floor 1, and then there's no offset. Let's put it up at like 8'6" to start. Okay, and we'll just put one there. Now it's telling me, hey, this is above. I can't see it. You put it in, but I can't see it. Just warning you. No problem. Let's just cancel on that. Escape twice. Let's go into our interior view. So where did those studio lights go? Well, whenever something like this happens, something odd, you know what you do? Go to your default 3D view. Just spin it around. Aha. So we put it offset 8'6", but really it must have its own built-in offset. So let's try that down at 0. Looks like that put it in the right place. Let's just go to the interior view and confirm. Yeah, there's the one studio light there. Good. All right, now let's go into a ceiling plan view. Okay, now we can see it there. Now what we could do is just say, well, maybe this is mimicking a light, like a ceiling fan or something. Maybe we're going to have a ceiling fan with multiple lights on it. So we can draw a couple of these things. And what they're going to do is just provide a little bit of light. It's more art than science at this point. And I'm just putting them basically there. I'm going to go back to my interior view. And now what's happened is I'm going to have a little bit of extra light that I can play with in the scene. So one last thing now before we get into actually hitting the rendering button. I'm going to click on my crop region and let's just expand that out a tiny bit because we could see a little bit more without the lens going too crazy on us. And it might give us a little bit extra context. Good. So we're going to save that, and we're getting closer and closer to rendering, so that'll be fun.